This is a conversation I have been wanting to have for a long, long time, and I'm so looking forward to it. And you want to be paying attention. This is Lauren Fogelman with Business Success Solution, and our topic is future-proofing your firm by leveraging the latest technology and techniques. And we're going to be talking with Randy Johnston. So some of the things that we're going to be covering is cutting-edge technologies that drive growth for forward-thinking firms, insights into the most lucrative offerings that will increase your firm's bottom line, and also avoiding some potential tech risks as your firm navigates the tech evolution. So Randy is a teacher at heart. He's always very generous, and I suggest you have something available so you can take some notes. A little bit about Randy. He's a sought-after speaker and contributor for the accounting and technology professions. He produces a weekly podcast for the CPA Practice Advisor, contributes to the Journal of Accountancy on a regular basis, as well as other industry publications. He's also been inducted into the Accounting Hall of Fame in 2011. I will let you know Randy has been consistently listed as a top 25 thought leader in accounting, and his influence is also acknowledged by Accounting Today as one of the top 100 most influential people. He does own and has started multiple businesses. Two are K2 Enterprises and Network Management Group, Inc. And Network Management Group, Inc. is the largest managed service provider that serves the CPA profession. If you want to find out more about Randy, go to randyjohnston.com. And Randy, I am so looking forward to our conversation today.
Lauren, it is a pleasure to be with you and your listeners. We have so many things to talk about. And as I was listening to all the accolades and background, I guess it happens when you've been around the profession a while.
Absolutely. So before we go into the topic, can you share a little bit as to how you got to really be someone who's a thought leader as far as tech and in the accounting space?
Yeah, it really comes, Lauren, from a long involvement with technology. It's hard to believe looking back that I've been doing technology-related things for over 60 years at this point, and got involved with CPA firms almost 50 years ago at this point. So it's been going on for a long time. The NMGI business you mentioned, we started 40 years ago. So, you kind of hear this progression, but the net here is quite simple. I've always tried to figure out ways that people could leverage technology in the way that benefits them the most. And early on, I was clearly more of a generalist in it, and wound up with large computers, mainframe, mini computers, and so forth, and came down into PCs. And when networking started to become popular in the 80s, I was a technologist deploying that in banks and many other situations. That really led me into CPA firms at that point. And from there, not only was I doing the networking piece, but then wound up with accounting software, which led to document management and workflow, which led to the practice management pieces. So our rule of thumb was very, very straightforward. I'm from Kansas, and we were doing local work in many Kansas towns at that point. So we dealt with professionals, the accountants, the doctors, the lawyers, and the bankers. That was our typical market that we worked on. And the more I did accountants, the more I became involved regionally and then nationally.
And with that being said, I know that the accounting profession continues to evolve. It's moving forward. Some of it is moving forward slowly. Some of it is very, very fast-paced. And what do you see as some of the biggest tech changes that is really helping the profession evolve?
Mm-hmm. Well, 3, 4 things are really going on here, Lauren, and it's almost like a simultaneous occurrence on these. First, the evolution of cloud-delivered SaaS-enabled products has allowed for a concentration of data, analytics on the data, applications on those environments is one. Number two, the current evolution of AI, which will drive the profession very far forward, I believe, it will be clear to me that accountants that are leveraging AI will have an advantage over accountants who do not leverage AI. But then third is this ability almost to work from anywhere, anytime on any device, which has been evolving pretty rapidly over the last 15 years, have
Mhm.
enabled professionals to turn their attention to more advisory related services. I've been a proponent of advisory for about 30 years and of client accounting services somewhat before that. And the ability for professionals to use their skills to assist small businesses to grow in that way, I think is a big deal. So it'll be interesting to see whether professionals choose to continue with compliance services like tax and audit, or if they morph themselves over into other practice areas.
Okay, some of the things that I'm hearing you say is that the SaaS products, and there are multiples, hundreds, thousands of them out there. And they're not all created equal. So it's about really doing diligence, but being able to use some SaaS products. AI is really the hottest thing that is being talked about right now, and it's already impacting the profession. And then also the fact that technology means that you don't have to have a brick and mortar office where you go to physically work any longer. It opens up so many opportunities. And one of the opportunities is that you can now move away from just the compliance technical side and really create the opportunity to be more future focused with your clients. And anything else that I was missing with that?
Well, one more that I'll put in the mix is the automation capabilities are minimizing the repetitive, I'll use the word boring work that we might have had to do in the
Mhm.
past. And the more you can automate your clients and your own practice, I think the better it is for everyone. And the automation tools are getting easier to use and more accurate. And
Mhm.
I think that'll be another very significant lever as we go forward.
And as we're talking about the technology, the automation, the SaaS products, I know that you have your hands on the pulse of everything that is technology related. I constantly see your feed on LinkedIn and all that you're posting about the changes. So are there any maybe breakthrough products that firms ought to be paying attention to right now, and that really you're seeing as something that is going to make a difference for firm owners?
Yeah, there's actually a notable number, and I usually don't have this many that I would cover at once. But the innovation rate has been high. So let's start with one.
Mhm.
There's an AI-based 1040 product right now called Black Ore, which has a product offering called Tax Autopilot. Now, this thing is sophisticated enough, it will take the supporting work papers for a typical 1040 and populate a tax return, making it partner reviewable. In other words, no 1040 work paper products like CCH Scan and Autoflow or
Mhm.
SurePrep or Companion Gruntworks needed, and no outsourcing. So it's 100% US AI. And in effect, this can take personal tax returns and improve them notably. We see other products like this happening in the business tax side too. So that's one. Uh,
Mhm.
a second one that is very interesting to watch their progress out of the Dallas area, a product called For Impact Data has advisory capabilities, which I've not seen like this in any other product. It can hook to QuickBooks Online files, for example, and leverage AI to help with business recommendations. And they basically claim, and they really do have it working, that they have codified knowledge on how to improve business operations. And so what happens is these dashboards, which are presented in Power BI, focus on all sorts of areas of a business, and it helps accounting professionals advise the firms in a much better way. We do see some other advisory tools coming along, but before impact data, in my mind, is the furthest along. Now, beyond those,
Okay.
but
Mhm.
beyond those type of tools, Lauren, um, I'm just going to say that I've got a collection of about a half a dozen now advisory tools that I'm thinking may be a big deal. I've got
Mhm.
about a half a dozen similar tax tools that I think might be a big deal. And, the one that I wish we'd have a bigger breakthrough in would be in the area of client accounting services. Probably the biggest products that are making a difference there are products like Digits or bookkeeper, but those are not as sophisticated as the Black or the Four Impact data.
Mhm. And what, curious about the four impact data now, could it be used for taxes as tax strategy as well as other business recommendations, or is it more on just the financial side?
It is more on the financial side. It's not really a tax planning
Mhm.
tool. Now, as it turns out, there are a number of tax planning tools out there that I think are quite brilliant. Corby is probably my
Mhm.
favorite of class right now in that area. And Andrew Argue and his team there have done a good job of incorporating not only a significant number of federal and state strategies, but also done it cross jurisdictional and have applied AI to it. So he continues to evolve very, very rapidly with that platform. And if I was going to focus around tax planning, I would actually pick a very specific tax planning tool. The new generation tools, Lauren, are clearly better than the legacy tools, the planner
Mhm.
CSs and the BNA planners. And, I can name all the other ones out there as well and have compared them. Uh, Too many of the tools have too few strategies to really be
Mhm.
effective. And I worry about that. But Corby claims to have about 2,000 strategies encoded into their platform and very simple to use.
Then from what I hear on the tax side is to look at Black Or as a 1040 product, and then Corby might complement with tax planning. And then the four impact data is really about advisory with giving insights for business recommendations.
It is. And I believe that you'll find that the repetitive, we'll call them, and I put them in three levels, Lauren: bookkeeping, controllership, outsourced CFO. Um, those types of compliance or CAS services are really entry into advisory. And I
Mhm.
prefer to flip it around where I put advisory as the lead, where I'm being very client centric, both a personal and business view to be forward looking as opposed to being, reverse looking.
Mhm. And I think that that kind of like goes right into the next thing that's coming up for me is that there's so many different lines of services that a firm could add into their vertical or expand their reach and what they offer their clients. So do you feel that there's any one that's the most profitable one that is worth paying attention to for firm owners?
I have a real clear opinion on that, but let me
Mhm.
just frame it first by saying B&A suggests that there's 30 niches to be in. And that's interesting, and I've reviewed those in the past. Uh, for the AICPA, for the digital CPA conference, I provided a list of advisory services, which unbelievable to me is 125 different advisory services that could be delivered. Obviously, we're not all doing 125
Mhm.
services, but advisory to me is the most profitable for the firm and for the client, while at the same time being interesting. And so I believe that advisory right now is the quickest growing. I think it's also the most profitable. Now, Accounting Today just released survey data showing that in large firms, client accounting services was growing very rapidly. But again, I look at client accounting services as interesting, but not strategic. It's
Mhm.
more of a compliance-based service. And if you drive everything with the advisory view of the world, you'll discover that you can do much better personally, financially. Your clients can do much better financially, and you probably won't work as hard at it.
Mhm. I tend to agree with you. My feeling is with advisory, it's telling the story behind the numbers so that your clients can actually make better business decisions. And the other thing, in my opinion, is that I believe accounting firms ought to flip the uh, order and lead with the fact that they help their clients make better decisions moving forward in their business. And they happen to do the compliance side also, instead of leading with the bookkeeping, tax, and accounting side of things as the primary service, and then advisory is more secondary.
Yeah, that is clearly a much better flip. I agree with the approach there. The compliance things continue to become more commoditized. I did not
Mhm.
say they're going away, but there's a lot more competitive price pressure there. And I think clients do it because they have to, not because they want to. And in my mind, advisory services are often what a client wants
Mhm.
once they understand that you offer them. But we don't do a very good job as a profession marketing these services because we just don't talk about them in a way that's attractive to the clients.
And that is a whole other conversation about how to communicate value that I could personally geek out over, but I want to be able to kind of stay really focused in our lane. So with potential opportunities also comes risk. And what are some of the risks that you see firms need to be aware of as they're moving forward and adapting new technologies, especially on the tax side? There's been some major changes that have happened in 2023 regarding compliance. So I'd like to hear your opinion about how to just mitigate risk as we're moving forward with technology.
Yeah. So, Lauren, here I would probably will think about two or three things with you. Uh, Privacy is the first one I'm going to lead with. Today, only 5 U.S. states have privacy regulations, but I believe that that number will be closer to um, 18 states within 3 years. It could go a little
Mhm.
quicker than that. I would prefer to see federal legislation on privacy so we'd have consistency instead of the way it got built up with breach reporting, for example, where, we had 30 and then 40 and so forth, different state laws. But we need to protect client data. I believe that the European Union is in far better shape on that. And in fact, because of artificial intelligence, there have been a pretty broad swath of AI privacy regulations. But I'm just thinking about privacy regulations in general being a risk. There's not very many platforms or ways to manage that either. I've actually only found one vendor that's built a product to do that out of Denver. And I kind of watch these things and say, wow, this is going to get really complex before it gets simpler. Secondarily, uh, in early 2024, the National Institute of Standards changed the security standards for the first time in almost a decade. And these new security standards extend what we have to do in our written information security plans, the 5447, 5293 compliance, if you do tax work. So that required plan now has additional compliance changes
Mhm.
that come from the new regulations. So that's kind of 1, 2, privacy plus security. Now, I think you drive a lot of this with policy, and so many firms are a little bit loose on their policies. Uh, Example here is not controlling what's put into AI engines under policy. I've watched public speakers and practitioners alike pump client data into AI engines, which by license agreement don't protect the data. Well, just think about you taking a private client's financial and analyzing it with AI, and all of a sudden that private client's financial winds up in the public domain.
Mhm.
I think that might not end well.
Absolutely. So, and I think that this is a very real concern that's continuing to grab attention because when I talk with firm owners, when they think of offshore, they think about data and security breaches, but very rarely do they think about it onshore. And I think that it's just as important when we're looking at any type of outsourcing or putting anything in the cloud, considering those privacy, security, and policy requirements in order to really protect your client data. Because if you can't protect it, it's going to have an impact on your business. Those negative reviews that come up and everything can be very, very costly. So
Yeah,
as
they
we're,
could. And
go ahead.
on your point on that, it is also pretty clear to me after reviewing the regulations that very few firms are being compliant with IRS requirements when they offshore or outsource. Now, the outsourcing companies don't want you to think like that because they can't really get you compliant. And the IT companies that are providing the platforms frequently can't get you compliant. And the publishers of the tax products can't get you compliant. So notice that I just named three
Mhm.
different entities
Right.
that understand there's a problem and know that they can't solve it. And what are we going to do about it? And there actually is a few places where it's getting solved, but by and large, most firms, if they're using outsourcing or offshoring, actually have a compliance problem.
And that's going to grab people's attention right there, as far as that goes. So as we're looking at this, technology is, as you said, continuing to evolve. There's some things that have been around for a long time. They are very well-known names. And do you feel that some of that more well-known technology is starting to get replaced?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. If we go back about 25 years ago, Thomson's Net Client CS was first introduced as a portal, as an example. And most of the portals that have been in the market are very long in the tooth. They're clumsy to use, unattractive and so forth. But vendors have built new generation portals, and we're seeing those get replaced at very high rates of speed. Vendors like Alicio or Truss or Stanford Tax have all built what I'd consider interesting new technology portals. And you might guess from Stanford Tax's name that they're a pretty good tax document gathering product. So is Trust, so is Liscio. So those three all happen to have very strong tax capabilities, workflow capabilities, and so forth. But today, there's almost 50 portals in the marketplace. And if we go back to something as simple as 2016, there were less than five
Hmm.
portals at that point.
So it's something that is rapidly expanding. And I think that with every portal, they all have their own nuances as to what it is that they do best. And you have to be very, very specific with what you want from a portal and how you want it to really serve you as well as your clients, because not all clients use portals equally. Not everybody's tech savvy as far as clients go. Um, do you feel that there is any particular recommendations then that really start to elevate firms and help them to really be seen as that go-to expert?
Yeah, and Lauren, in this case, I have been pretty consistent on this through the years. You did identify it probably as from my biases starting in education because I wrote college textbooks too. But the training element is really key. It doesn't matter whether you're a sole practitioner up through a small, mid-sized firm and so forth. The team development through training, not just CPE, but true education that helps you do your work better is a big deal. And it's not all technical training. It's not about the latest tax or audit regulation. There's also how to deal with people,
Hmm.
and the four-letter word of accounting sale, sales training, if you will, which I think is important. I really consider sales an education process because what you're doing is teaching people about things that they don't know about and
Hmm.
possible ways to solve them. But to me, This takes care of your team, and taking care of teams right now is critical. If you want the most successful growing firm, you're still going to have people performing the services. And, if you don't bring your team along, they will get stale. They won't be as on top of their game as they should be. They won't be coordinating among each other. There's just lots of things that happen when you do training right.
And I think for the most part, people want to grow and evolve, and that includes team members. My experience, especially with what's going on now with hiring and staffing, is that really good quality team members are harder to replace than clients. And that it is so worth investing in your team because they'll be more loyal, they're going to be stickier, they're not going to be jumping from job to job as much. And as a result of that, it's going to be a way to have your firm stand out. So we've been talking about a lot about technology, some of the things as far as tax implications versus accounting services. And we touched on the advisory as well as the training aspects. So is there anything else that you see rapidly evolving or that you feel is really worth mentioning and paying attention to?
Well, in terms of rapid evolution, and it was a slow start, but I consider it much like a locomotive, Lauren, and that is client accounting services. If you've ever watched a train start, it is a very slow start, but once it gets rolling, it has a lot of momentum to it. And client accounting services has started way too slowly for my preference. But now that it's got momentum, the tool sets are improving, the adoption and the interest by clients is growing. You can use this as a back-end compliance service on your advisory area. I believe that accountants that are doing client accounting services see opportunities in clients first. It's where you can see payroll overruns or inventory issues. And so when you've got the accounting data, you see the first opportunities among the clients. And so having the ability to have a very smoothly functioning client accounting services segment of your practice is a big deal. Some of the I'll call it specialists that I know in the area have suggested that you keep your teams doing these services relatively small. They recommend pods of 5 people, for example. And, a misconception that I probably taught early on in this was that you needed to focus on a single platform. Let's just say Sage Intacct or QuickBooks or whatever. And what I've concluded is that you can use pods to focus. So you could have 3 pods of QuickBooks people and 1 pod of Sage Intacct people and 1 pod of Xero people. And you'll actually serve the clients better because you've got flexibility to fit their needs with appropriate platforms, and you've got experts in each of those areas. So client accounting services, it's changing the most rapidly right now.
And if that was something that a firm wanted to really lead with, and they saw that as an easier way to develop a new vertical instead of the advisory part, what would you say would be a first good step?
Well, I think you need to do your own research in the area, but I'm going to caution the listeners today that each vendor who has a platform tries to sell their platform to you. So the client accounting services documentation that they create is biased towards their platform. Okay. So it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg thing. You need to really figure out where your team members' expertise is at, what type of services you believe you should provide, and then figure out which platforms fit that. So I kind of flip it upside down and have you do your design of services before you do any platform selection. And really, the design of services includes pricing. I know, Lauren, you do a lot of work around pricing, for example, but it really is do the work to get your product offering prepared before you go to market with it.
I appreciate those insights. I know that every single time that we talk, Randy, I always am learning something new from you. I appreciate the fact that you're able to make sophisticated technology understandable because everybody has different comfort levels with it. And some of the things that we touched on was those cutting edge technologies in order to drive growth for forward thinking firms, insights into some of the most lucrative offerings that will increase a firm's bottom line, and avoiding some of those potential risks. So Randy, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, find out more about how you can help with the management side, the technology side, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Well, I'm very quick responder at email typically. So you can use either my K2 address, randy@k2e.com, as simple as that sounds, or my NMGI address, randyj@nmgi, as in Network Management Group Inc.com. Those two email addresses both flow to the same in basket for me, and either one of them works.
Thank you so much, Randy, for the engaging conversation. For everybody that's been joining us and tuning in, this is Lauren Fogelman with Business Success Solution, showing accounting firm owners how to double their income working half the time.